Welcome everyone to Swimming with Sharks, Adventures in Sales Ops. My name is Will Smith. I am your host. This show is brought to you by Manobite, and we have got a great show ready for you today. So excited to be sharing with you the information that we're going to be getting from our guest. It's going to be a great show. So we're going to change the format a little bit today because we want to get right to the exciting part, and that, of course, is our guest. So here's what we're looking at for today. So in today's adventure, we're listening to the introduction right now. So we're going to get started and we'll be checking that off real soon. So today's guest is Ben Kelley, and he is a senior customer onboarding specialist with HubSpot. And you know, I've admitted this many times before, I am a big HubSpot fan. So having another HubSpotter with us on the show is, of course, exciting for me. And I think it'll be exciting for you as well. Then we're going to wrap things up with a question of the day. And of course, the question of the day is to ask you to answer that question while we're offline, while we're not live. So get in touch with us through any of the social media on Manobite with Manobite. You can email me. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can answer the question there in the comments. Either way, we want you to interact. We want you to start a conversation so that we can all learn from each other, which of course is the purpose of the show. So please answer that question of the day. But even if you're not going to do that during the week, today, right now, if you're watching us live on Facebook, live on Twitter, or live on YouTube, please, if you have questions for the Senior Onboarding Customer Specialist, if you have questions for Ben, or if you just want to just make a statement and just say, Ben, that was awesome, thank you for dropping that knowledge, please interact with us by commenting and reacting, and let's start a conversation in that way. By the end of the show, we'll wrap things up with until next time. But until that time, we have some time to spend with our friend I'd like to introduce you to, Ben Kelley. He enjoys cooking in his spare time. And I'm going to ask him about this, not just for me personally, but I'm sure you're going to be interested in this. He once played a murder suspect in a reenactment TV series. And those of you that are subscribed to Hulu, of course, I'm a big fan. We're going to find out today how we can find him on Hulu, which will be awesome. But of course, today he's live with us. He prefers going to the beach/ocean over kind of a more forest kind of vacation. So when it's time for vacation time, you can find Ben at the beach, which is great. And I think this is why we get along so well. He could eat pizza every day forever. And I got to agree with that statement. He's a senior customer onboarding specialist with HubSpot. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shark Tank, Ben Kelley. Welcome, Ben. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Will. How are you today? Thanks for having me.
It's so exciting to have you here because I enjoy working with you. So I'm so excited that you said yes and that you're joining us today. So tell us about Hulu.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I'm so excited to hear more about Hulu. Tell us about your experience as an actor and how you got this role.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a throwback for me, but when I was back in college, I did an internship for the production company that produced this show for Investigation Discovery, and I was just a production assistant for them, and we had an actor not show up for one of the shoots that day that we were just beginning, and they needed someone. Everybody else was there, everything was set up and ready to go. We spent all this time and money to get it ready, and the actor didn't show, so they threw me in there, and I had to play one of the suspects in the episode.
Did you have any lines?
There was no lines, so there was a non-speaking type role, so it was all just kind of like reenacting different scenes throughout the show. So fortunately, I didn't have to remember any lines, which is not something I'm good at.
They say that is so there's probably a lot of, less on the lines, but more on the facial expressions, things like that. They say that that's harder acting to do. Would you agree?
I mean, I think I deserve an Emmy for it.
Absolutely. Oh, that sounds good. So I'm going to check it out. What's the name of the show again?
Yeah, it's Nightmare Next Door.
Okay.
And the episode that I'm in is season 8, episode 3.
Season 8, Episode 3. I know what I'll be
Yes.
watching this evening, so just to check it
I
out.
can't wait to hear what you think.
Right? Yes, I will. I will follow that up with my impressions via email, so that you.
Perfect. I look forward to it.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for that little tidbit of information. So you're not at the beach. Sadly, it's you're based out in Boston, correct, or the Boston area?
I am. Yeah, I'm in Boston.
Okay, so not at the
Yeah.
beach.
Not at the beach, close to the water though. So I live in
Oh,
East
okay.
Boston, which is surrounded by Boston Harbor. So I get the joy of the nice skyline views of the city over the harbor.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so
Yeah,
spring, summertime, even a little bit of fall, you're doing your favorite thing, being at the beach there, huh?
exactly,
All
exactly.
right, super. So let's jump right into it here. First of all, I love pizza as well. I think I'm having pizza for dinner tonight because of this
Awesome,
interview. Yes, so many varieties, so many things you could do with it. So
right?
yeah, exactly. So let me ask you this. Okay, so I asked this question, and most of our guests here on Swimming with Sharks, as you know, what we do is I send out kind of a questionnaire to kind of say, here's kind of what we're thinking to kind of get your point of view. So I'd like
Yeah.
to know your take. Explain to me your take on customer first mentality.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really great mentality, first of all, for a lot of businesses to have to really put their customers first. But what I think some people kind of miss the mark on that is making sure that they, take care of themselves first. So one of the things I always say that RuPaul always says is, "If you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else?" And I think that's really important in terms of putting your customer first. So take that time to, understand yourself, take care, self-care for yourself, and then having that energy and that back to you is something that you're able to give back to your customers. And I think it's more impactful that way.
I really like that because so many people think that self care they make that equivalent with selfishness.
Hmm.
And I think the way that you frame that is so important that taking care of yourself is ultimately customer care, customer first.
Exactly. It's exactly how I would put it.
So getting a good night's sleep, having that 2 o'clock cup of coffee to get the energy going in the afternoon.
Yeah, or even just taking time to recharge of like, hey, this is my day off. I'm going to recharge and focus on myself, not on work. And then when you're back in the office, you can give that all back to your customer.
Yeah, some of the things that you mentioned were continuous training, continuous learning. What are some other things that we can do that would help our self care and in turn help the customer? What do you
Yeah,
suggest?
definitely. Again, the training is definitely important. I think allowing people to grow professionally and personally, through training and development is super important. So making sure that your team has the time to be able to do that in their day is so important there. I think in addition to that, making sure that they feel comfortable to, take that time for themselves. So understanding that like they are in charge of their schedules, they are in charge of their time, and that they can use that time as they need, and don't feel like they need to be chained to their work at all times. Those breaks and those time off are really important.
I really like how you framed that because you said the team, because this isn't just a self care, but it's also the team care as well. And as someone who's in a leadership position, this is a leadership issue as well, would you say?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it starts with leadership, really, because they're the ones that are going to set the standards there, almost by demonstrating, those values there. So if they practice what they preach, hopefully the rest of the team should also be doing the same as well.
I think it's fantastic. Not just self care, but also team care. And
Hmm.
as Simon Sinek says, just because you're not in a leadership role, you can still be a leader. And like you said, it starts with leadership. That's I really like that because the mentality of just grinding it out and getting it done and doing the work. I mean, certainly there's a place for hustle,
Hmm.
but and hard work. But if you're not caring for yourself, then
Can
what
you do it efficiently?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, all right, that is I like that. So, from an onboarding's perspective, what should everyone kind of in the onboarding space, what should they start doing? What do you think is missing?
Yeah, I think really they should really make sure that they understand what do their customers need to achieve with onboarding. So why do people purchase onboarding in the first place? Because they need to get familiar with how to use your tools, their software that you just purchased or their product that they just purchased, and they need to see value in it pretty quickly. So you want to make sure that you're addressing what those pieces are going to be that are going to allow them to feel comfortable using your tools, but also seeing that value immediately as they are paying for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a definite issue when it, well, not issue, but this is your first impression and with your customer. And so onboarding is sometimes overlooked. And how I think it fits into sales ops is what can we do to make that? So let me ask you, what can we do to make that transition smoother going from the sales handoff? Customer has signed the contract and now they're in your, they're in your space, they're in your environment. How can we make that transition smoother and more friction free?
Yeah, great point. I think that, it's a good reminder that onboarding doesn't just begin when the sale closes. It's actually, I think, part of the sales process. So sales needs to be mindful of what exactly onboarding is and understand how the onboarding is delivered. So that way they're able to communicate that value to their customers when they're purchasing as well, because it is a huge value add to get them up and running there. And then beyond that, as part of the sales process, when they're handing that over to the customer success team or the customer onboarding team, make sure that, they're very clear in what those customers' objectives are of like, hey, this is why the customer purchased, this is what they want to achieve, and here are some things to focus on initially in the onboarding period. That's going to allow the onboarding specialist or your onboarding team to really hit the ground running and make sure that they're also working towards those goals with that customer and make your customer feel really, make them feel like they've been heard. Which is huge. Obviously, everybody wants to make sure that they've been heard. So if your customer onboarding team is able to say like, yeah, hey, these are the goals that I took from sales, like, is this correct? You're going to be able to move even faster than if you had to reset those goals.
I think there's also a comfort level in that everyone that you're working with, many people are comfortable with their salesperson because they've been through the however long the sales process is, whether it's 1 week or a couple of weeks, they've been through the question answer process. And if the onboarding specialist or the next person that they're kind of handed off to, if they know the expectations, I think there's a comfort level. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, hey, like change is nerve-wracking for people. So if you're changing from one point of contact to the next, you don't know what you're about to get. So knowing that you've provided your customer onboarding team with really good notes and handoff information and allowing them to be able to recite that back to their customer really builds that trust from the get-go, which is huge.
Yeah, definitely. Change is difficult for anybody, but add to that, however, add money into that as well.
Yes.
However much you're spending, then it gets a little uncomfortable.
Right. You purchase this product, you purchase this service. Like, I need to make sure there's value in this.
Absolutely. So tell me how you were working. This goes back to my first question about your acting experience. So you're working. So was that kind of the goal? And if not, give us a little history how you ended up as an onboarding specialist. I don't think anyone ever says, when they're 3, oh yeah, I'm going to be an onboarding specialist for sure.
Well, as a matter of fact, that's exactly what I said. No, all
deserve
kidding
the Emmy
aside.
for that performance
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Thank you. No, all kidding aside, I always thought I wanted to be in like radio or television. It was just always something that had interested me. Had worked, for like a local radio news station here in Boston for a while. Before kind of shifting gears into thinking, where can I go with this? And really started to go towards marketing, which seemed to be like the area that for me was of interest. So had recently, before coming to HubSpot, worked for marketing at a bank. Which is really interesting, definitely different, than working at a software company, but a lot of great knowledge and valuable lessons learned there. But beyond that, I was looking for like career opportunities and growth and thinking, where can I go to, achieve that? And why not go to a company that says grow better for that type of growth? So I ended up at HubSpot and have been on the team for about 2.5 years now, doing the onboarding.
Very good. Very good. So, what should we start doing? What do you see in the onboarding space? What should folks start doing?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and I've always wondered, like, what is something that they should be doing, or shouldn't be doing, I guess, if you say that much. But I would say make sure that you're engaging with like your current customers and really making sure that you're understanding like who they are. and do this on a regular basis too, I think. And sorry, trying to find my words there for that, but I think where I'm going with that is making sure that you're understanding the value that you're providing to them by engaging with those customers. So making sure that you survey them and understand, where did you find the most value in onboarding? Where was it not valuable? That way you can always be modifying and adjusting your onboarding process to really meet those goals, and finding any gaps in that process. So there are going to be them, and you want to admit that, but you also want to mitigate those as much as you can. So really focusing in on that.
So always finding some way to improve. And that starts with talking to your current customers.
Absolutely. Why not go to the source? If they have gone through the experience in the process, I'm sure they have some feedback to provide you. So ask them for it, and hear them out.
Yeah, I think you're really touching on something that's important, that a lot of times once they're onboarded, there are some organizations out there that just kind of say, great, good luck, and thanks for your time, and thanks for your monthly fee or whatever, whatever they're paying. And the only time that there's any engagement is when there's a problem versus that continual conversation almost.
Right, you're almost reacting, and that's really hard to react, because there's so much that has to be understood at that moment of, like, what is the exact issue, what do we want to achieve, and then there's obviously nerves involved, and there's pressure involved if people are upset. So you want to try to avoid that by definitely staying ahead of it and in addressing those before they even become issues.
Continuous improvement through conversation. I love it. That is great. Okay, so tell me a little bit about a resource, a tool that you think people aren't quite leveraging as much as they should or could.
Yeah, I think this one's kind of an obvious one, and they definitely are leveraging it, that we know. But I always think that there's ways that people can continuously leverage it. I think Google is the best thing. And I mean that, like, when I don't know the answer for something, I'm just constantly going to Google, and trying to change the way that I search for something, in terms of, so that way I'm able to find what I'm looking for. I think Google is just so valuable for that.
That was not a paid endorsement.
It was not at all. Yeah. I just think it's a great resource.
Absolutely.
I should say search engine.
Right, exactly. It is a great search engine. I gotta agree with you there. It's interesting. I read something the other day that one of the reasons why, of course, with an onboarding process, you do have a lot of questions that may not have been answered during sales because they just weren't at the point or within the tool. Yeah. So the point that was made, that was, I saw this on Twitter. I should probably shout out who it was, but I don't know what the handle is. But they basically said, listen, one of the reasons why people don't just Google simple questions or looking for an answer, they don't just do that, is because they crave that human interaction. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that. I find that a lot in my experience, that people will come to me directly and ask me, hey, what's the answer to this? What's the question to this? And I think it's great, because they're going to you because you're a trusted resource for them. So they obviously trust your input, and that's why they're going to reach out to you.
Yeah, that conversation, that human interaction, that you can get a lot more in depth into the issue than you can with just a blog post.
Right. Google's not going to ask further questions to try to help better understand, whereas a person's going to say, well, hey, let's understand this process a little bit more, or understand the question a little bit more by digging a little deeper.
Yeah, understanding what your question is and how it relates to your business or your organization specifically.
Right. Absolutely.
Nice.
How it relates, and even thinking, is this the right way to do this? Is there a better way to do this? And again, Google is not necessarily going to be able to tell you that, whereas a human that you are engaging with definitely can understand those nuances better.
Okay, so we talked about Google on one side, and then we talked about the human interaction. Right in the middle, I want to ask you your opinion on internal wikis.
Maybe it's a little pain point of mine. Yeah. I think they're fantastic. There's definitely a lot of information. I think they definitely want to focus on, organizations want to focus on how they organize these and keep them useful for people, because otherwise it can become information overload. And I've experienced this at numerous companies that I've worked for, in the past. So definitely want to make sure that, you keep it structurally organized, so that way, as your business continues to grow and scale, that information is either updated, you're getting rid of old information, and you make it easy for them to navigate.
Excellent. And I'm based on the knowledge that is available to the general public via Google through HubSpot. I'm guessing HubSpot has some pretty killer internal wikis.
We really do. Yeah, a lot of the teams are really utilizing it. A lot of information in there, which is great. Can usually always find the answer I'm looking for.
Nice,
Yeah.
very good. So tell me a little bit about, now's your bragging moment, okay?
All right.
Tell me what's a recent activity that you've implemented for your team that's brought about maybe some surprising results. You thought, this probably not going to work, but you were surprised at the result.
Yeah, it's not something that's necessarily recent, but it's something that's more ongoing that
Okay.
I've been working on with my team internally here, my customer onboarding team. But basically, we've been expanding on our focus on activation metrics, which we know that activation metrics are really important because they tell us that customers are using their software, they're seeing value in that software, and they're more likely to retain, which retention is so important in terms of growth. So we focus on these numbers here, and basically, as part of my work with my team is I've just been going over the numbers, in our biweekly meetings that we have, and really allowing the team to have discussions on ways that they've improved on their numbers or improved on these focus areas, or areas that we can improve on to help see those grow. And we've definitely seen those numbers improve over time as we've done that there, which I think there's a couple of things involved there. I think if they're focused on those numbers, that obviously means that they're focused on their customers. So again, going back to the whole customer first mentality, that's really important. Not to say that your onboarding should be, focused on metrics, but that tells you a story about how you're doing. But from a personal perspective, I think it allows the team members to know that they're progressing towards something as well, and that's helpful for them when it comes to career growth and opportunities. So they can kind of tout their numbers, as they're continuing to grow their career and apply for new jobs as well.
You touched on something that I really like, and I'm going to ask you to expand on it a little bit. Those numbers, they tell a certain story. Can you give an example of a story that a number, without giving away too many secrets? Can you give an example of a number, maybe in one of your team meetings, where you looked at a number and somebody said, "I'll tell you why that number is this. Here's the story behind it."
Yeah, I think one of the numbers, perhaps is like integrations. So there's
Okay.
some people who work with customers and they have a lot of integrations, whereas others may not have as many. And I think it really brought to light that, hey, there are so many integrations that are available,
Mm.
and people don't always know which ones to be making recommendations for their customers. So it allowed us to kind of shift our focus to say like, hey, here are some really good common integrations that you can recommend and use with your customers there. And we've seen that number increase because we're building more awareness around what's available, what's in the marketplace.
So taking a look at the number, saying, "Hey, let's look at integrations a little bit more. Recommend the following things." And
Yep.
great.
Yeah.
That's
And not being
really
cookie cutter, obviously, but just being
right.
more aware of what's out there and then understanding when and how to make those recommendations.
Well, the very fact that there are so many integrations that are available with HubSpot, there's
Yes.
definitely nothing cookie cutter about it. So.
Yes, definitely. There definitely is not.
Yeah, that's good. I like that a lot. That's really good. So, tell me a little bit about your team. And again, another bragging moment for you here. But what's something you and your team have recently achieved that you're pretty proud of?
Oh, that's a really good question. I guess there's a lot of things that our team has done and trying
We
to
are
think
so
about that.
awesome.
Yeah. No, one of the things that comes to mind is as HubSpot continues to grow, and a lot of businesses will come across this with their onboarding teams and as they grow, is you need to think about new and different ways that you can increase customer value and their time to value. And that's obviously hard when you have, an onboarding team that is all internal. So one of the things that we've actually started to do and kind of expand upon is how we're delivering that onboarding experience through, utilizing our trusted agency partners and our certified agency partners to help deliver this onboarding experience in the exact same way that HubSpot is delivering this experience as well, which has allowed us to expand and scale our onboarding services beyond just needing to hire additional headcount. Which I think for our customers just brings so much value because our partners just have so much knowledge and experience with HubSpot as well.
I think that's great. I do have to say, as you know, we work together on this, and
yes, we do.
I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I was kind of, I have to admit, I was kind of nervous, kind of like, what am I kind of getting into here? I thought HubSpot was really good at onboarding. Why do they need us? And so, but not only being able to replicate the system or the process that, or at least the framework of the process that HubSpot has, I've certainly learned so much just being able to do that. So I must say, thank you.
You've been fantastic.
Thank you. I wasn't fishing for compliments, but I'll take it. Thank you.
You deserve it.
I appreciate that very much. Well, listen, Ben, anything else that you want to add before we close out the show? Any questions, concerns? You want to put out a question for the audience out there? Or do you just have one final statement that you have to make or quote?
Yeah, no, I just want to say, one of the things, I guess for quote-wise, that comes to mind is one of the things that our founder, Brian Halligan, always says is that customer success, or your customer onboarding team and customer success team really is the grease to your flywheel. So really, invest in them and focus on them, as you continue to grow, your team. They're really an important integral part to that overall customer experience.
Man, Ben, it's so great to have you on the show. And, to close up with a Brian Halligan quote, oh, you're good.
Perfect.
You're good. You're really good. I really appreciate that. So if you have questions for Ben, if you guys have out there in the audience, if you have questions for Ben, of course, if you're listening to this on the podcast and you want to get in touch, we have Ben's, I think it's Benjamin Kelley 1 at on LinkedIn. So you can reach out to him there. You can reach out to me and I'll make the connections and everything. If you have questions for Ben, please engage so we can all learn together. So Ben, thanks so much for being on the show. And we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for having me, Will. Really appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Ben. So we're going to wrap things up with, how do you onboard? The question is, even whether you have a defined process or not, we've been talking about onboarding. And so the question of the week for you, and of course, we ask that you engage with us however you engage best, but let us know how you do onboarding. And if you can't answer that question, maybe it's time to take a look at it. It's time to look at, okay, what's the process here? A lot of times we have sales and then great, they sign the contract and they're ready to go and they're a customer. Are we being assumptive in that way? Are we assuming that they know everything? Is there an opportunity to create a really well-developed onboarding experience? And not just for customers, but also for your employees, because obviously an engaged, happy employee, and you can listen to Jason Azakar from HubSpot. You can listen to his episode. That's such an important thing. So how do you onboard your employees? How do you onboard your customers? Something to think about as we wrap up the show, and something to think about this week. So thanks again to Ben for joining us. And until next time, please get in touch with us in some way, shape, or form. Manobite, of course, you can reach us at any one of these places on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and of course on Instagram as well. You can also email me, will.smith@manobite.com. And until next time, we thank you for joining us today, and we ask that you take care of yourself and take care of each other, and may all your adventures be great.